Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you might be. Welcome to our call. This is our business chat that we have for the SCA US chapter that we've been holding about every other month. My name is Jeanine Niyonzima-Aroian. I am the owner of JNP Coffee, founder of Burundi Friends International, and I also serve on the leadership group of the SCA US chapter. I'm very excited to be here today and bringing you some of the very amazing presenter panelists to just share us on what's working. And I also wanted to let you know that this is a call from our listeners. We have listeners who every single time that they come in to listen to our business chat, they have suggestions as what they want us to do next. And that's actually how I got a chance to meet Francis specifically, because I never heard about him and his company and all the wonderful thing that he's doing in his home country of Kenya. And I was fortunate to already know about Kellem, who also used to work for WCA as executive director. So without no further ado, I just want to ask each one of the panelists today to introduce themselves, and then we'll go into some of the exciting things that we have going on today. So I'm going to start with the ladies first. So Kellem, if you may, please introduce yourself and just give us a little bit about background about sustainable harvest and really what's working there.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeanine, and thank you, SCA and Francis. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you in our dry run. So I selfishly look forward to today for my own notes and learning. And of course, Jeanine, you and JNP Coffee and Burundi Friends International are always inspirational. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kellem Emanuele. I'm with Sustainable Harvest Coffee Importers. We are a coffee importer based in Portland, Oregon, sourcing from over 18 countries and connecting suppliers to customers across the globe. My role with Sustainable Harvest is as Chief Impact Officer, and my previous experience in coffee includes 5 years with the International Women's Coffee Alliance. So that's just a brief few notes about me. And then one thing we talked about prior to getting started is if participants feel comfortable and you'd like to share in the chat, what you're interested in learning today, or perhaps your role in coffee, that will help us as we shape the things we share to really try and target what you want to get out of today. So with that, Francis, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Kellem. My name is Francis Kungu, and first of all, let me thank Jeanine for reaching out. I appreciate you reaching out, and it's a great pleasure to meet you, Kellem, as well. And the SCA, thank you for holding this. As I said, my name is Francis Kungu, and I'm the founder of Jamii Coffee. Actually, Jamii is a Swahili word that means community, and we specialize in Kenyan coffee. And for us, it has always been like trying to find a solution for what plagues our coffee industry in Kenya. And something I like to say is that I was not born and raised in coffee, so that is something that I didn't know about. But I'm here talking about coffee and trying to find solutions that would help us alleviate this problem. So thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis, and thanks, Kellem, for your introduction. And also, I want to also mention that this call is being recorded. SCA provide this recording on Instagram after our discussion, and you can always access it because most people are not able to actually make it at a very specific time, so it's always accessible to members and non-members after the call. So we also want to let you know there is some code of conduct that we have to adhere with as a listener to this call. They are in the chat. If you might want to check it when you want to, when you can, but just want to let you know that it's out there. And as well as we had mentioned, please bring your question forward as we move into the discussions here, but also we're going to leave about 15 minutes at the end if you have any specific questions to ask to the panelists. So as I had mentioned earlier, the reason we're actually having this call with Francis and Kellem, this is from the really request from our listeners, they were very tired about listening things are not working, and they said, let's hear about people who are doing great work and things are working. And they actually specifically asked about the things that Sustainable Harvest has been doing in Colombia. So hopefully Kellem can enlighten us on that end. And they also introduced me to Francis with his company about the work that he's also doing in Kenya that's working. So the purpose of all this discussion here is to talk about and share about things that are working in the different part of the globe, and also that we can hopefully be able to apply in everywhere in the supply chain. So with no further ado, again, Kellem, maybe if you can just give us a little bit of feedback about Colombia, Sustainable Harvest involvement there, and what's working and why is it working and what problems we're trying to solve there.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jeanine. Happy to. For those of you who may not know Sustainable Harvest, our calling card, the approach that Dave Griswold pioneered when he founded the company in 1997 is relationship coffee, really working to disrupt a linear sort of opaque approach to coffee trade, to take an approach that helps provide farmers with the insights they need to know and understand about the market and the buyers of their coffee, but also recognize that no one exists in a vacuum. In fact, there's a relationship ecosystem that makes any successful relationship. And so our calling card is, relationship coffee is what we do. And so with that in mind, I think the context that is important to understand the successes in Colombia is to know that we have a very incredible team that I'm proud to call colleagues based in Colombia. Claudia Rocio Gomez is our coffee quality manager. She's been working at Sustainable Harvest for over 10 years, just about 11 years. Liliana Rodriguez is our impact and supply coordinator, also our business administrator for the coffee office, for the Sustainable Harvest Colombia office. And so where Claudia has the relationships and the expertise focusing on coffee quality, Lily brings the other part of the ecosystem, which is a focus on impact as well as business administration. And then last but certainly not least is our colleague Leonardo Acosto, coffee quality control manager. And if you'll excuse me for looking at my notes, I'm so used to calling them by their first names and their nicknames, I forget the last name sometimes. But that just is, I think, also an indicator of how deeply relational the approach at Sustainable Harvest, but really in Colombia, how the team works to grow those relationships with our suppliers. And with this idea of understanding and relationships, grew the idea of what we call the Premium Sharing Rewards Program. And the program was first deployed and developed by Sustainable Harvest in Rwanda, but then applied most recently to Colombia. And what Premium Sharing Rewards does is it recognizes, especially for women, what we know from, I believe it was the 2018 ICO Coffee Development Report. We know that women in many coffee growing communities face a disproportionate burden in terms of balancing domestic responsibilities with coffee responsibilities. That combined with a disproportionate lack of access to training and technical development created the solution or innovation of Premium Sharing Rewards. And how it works is it's recognizing that, especially for women, if they're going to take time out of their already overfilled day to attend the training that everybody agrees is essential to improvement and growth, no matter what your field, there needs to be an immediately tangible reward for essentially the opportunity cost of taking time out from the things that produce tangible results, whether it's domestic responsibilities or time, working with coffee. And so, but rather than develop the reward in a vacuum, the way Premium Sharing Rewards works is it works with our team in Sustainable Harvest, with the cooperative, as well as with the women who will participate in the program themselves, to develop a rewards catalog and basically says, okay, what is it you most need? And in some cases, for example, in Rwanda, what was most needed were things related to the home or the family. In the case of the Colombia project, which what was most needed were things more directly related to on-farm activities. So materials such as sorry, I want to make sure to get the terms right, but materials having to do with the harvesting of coffee or different fertilizers, hoppers, etc. So this catalog was created based on what the people who would be in the program said they needed. And for every training attended, participants, the women who participated, earned points for attending the training. And then they also earned points for successfully demonstrating on farm the skills that were taught during that training, right? So with the accumulation of points, we arrived to the end of the program, and not only did participants receive the topics covered by the training, which included coffee quality improvements, coffee agricultural best practices, as well as some financial and market aspects of the coffee industry. Not only did the participants receive those trainings that plant the seeds, sorry for the pun, but plant the seeds for further growth and development of their coffee, but then also received the reward, if you will, the tangible reward for the opportunity cost of taking the time out, despite that additional burden to attend those trainings. And so I think in terms of others who may be looking to do those kinds of programs, what the key elements or the repeatable successes are, building those relationships so that you can create an environment of really understanding and sharing what the needs are, what the challenges are, recognizing the full context and the full challenges of what your program may be up against, right? It's not enough to simply say, oh, women don't have access to training, let's schedule training, or women aren't attending trainings, let's just make them attend. It's really having that conversation, that depth of relationship, that sort of building those forums for communication to facilitate understanding the aspects of the problem that you can build into the design process. And so more or less, it's a bit of a long answer, Jeanine, but I think those are the key elements of what's working in Colombia. And, as we see it, what's essential to tackle any challenge.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kellem, and thank you for actually explaining your premium reward, program in Sustainable Harvest. And actually, really, what I like to hear about this discussion is how you're able to actually, develop the relationships differently in different markets. Although we are dealing with some maybe basic, similar problems in different part of the world, the way you attack it and the way you actually, respond to the needs are different. And actually, really, what that means to me, which is kind of where always also too, what I've done in Burundi, for example, just listening. You have to kind of listen to what people are asking you to do instead of just going in with the mindset about this is what I'm going to do because this is what they need, but instead listen to what they're asking for you to try to fix. And also one thing that's very interesting here is when you go into this situation, you always find out the problem is above and beyond just coffee. Like you said, like in Rwanda, the needs were just like some of the, problems they were trying to solve at home. Like you're saying, like in Colombia, was like, the farm activities, maybe the tools that they need to actually be able to produce better coffee and so forth. So this is quite exciting. And then with no further ado is I'm actually going to go to Francis. And Francis can also tell us a little bit about the issues he was trying to solve and he's trying to solve in Kenya and why. Like you also had mentioned, Francis, you didn't come from coffee. And I think there is a very interesting part about this, the fact you didn't come from coffee and why what you might be doing right now is actually working. So can you please share a little bit about what you're doing in Kenya?
So thank you, Jeanine. Yeah, for us, and as I mentioned, I didn't come from coffee, and I came from a community that grew another cash crop. That's what we called the product that we produced for export, not just for consumption at home. So we grew a product that was called pyrethrum, and that product ended up actually dying, and that affected our community a lot. That was like our whole economic thing for my community. And what happened is like we had to shift gears and be able to start growing other crops. Having said that, you could be able to see that there was poverty coming in. A lot of my friends were not able to, some of them even dropped out of school because of these issues. So for me, when I saw coffee in Kenya at that moment in the 1980s was working. We knew coffee farmers to be successful people. And then come the 1990s and everything starts falling off. And you start seeing all these issues coming into play. So coming here to the US, that's when I realized that there was a huge disconnect where the farmers are actually complaining that there's no market for their coffee, or the prices are so low. And then on the other end, you have people who want Kenyan coffee. So for me, that it was that disconnect that I wanted to figure out. And since we don't, I realized that personally in my community, we never understood this crop we were growing. So when I started talking to the farmers, the coffee farmers, I also understood that they did not know anything about coffee and its trade beyond the farm. The farmers are very smart, they are very good. All the way at the farm, they can be able to teach you. Actually, I was taught about coffee from A to Z by a lady who actually from her seedling bed all the way to the drying table. And then when I asked her, so what happens after this? She says, actually, you know what? My husband takes it and it's sold. I said, how is it sold? She said she doesn't know. So to me, that was something that really caught on with me because we never knew anything about it. So I started teaching myself. So everything I know, I taught myself. It's about talking to people in coffee in Kenya. So I surrounded myself with people who knew coffee in Kenya, and that means regulations. That means how it's traded. So I reached out to one of my friends, actually one of my team members in Kenya. His name is Ernest. And that's when we started thinking, okay, how can we be able to move this product? How can we be able to move the product from Kenya all the way to the US and connect our farmers directly? And then to us, that was a rabbit hole. When you start there, you think it's gonna be something short, and then you keep going down, and then you realize it's deeper than you thought. So we kept going. And that's when we also realized, like, okay, the farmer is asking a certain price. The market is willing to pay a certain price. Now, does the farmer know if it's profitable? And that's when we started this approach we call the soil to cup approach. It's a very, and one of the things we did was we want the farmer to remain profitable. We want the importer to be able to also remain profitable, and we want the roaster also to remain sustainable. So it's like sustainability on the whole supply chain. And the farmer does what he does best. He does at the farm. So one of the things was we had to figure out about cost of production. So we found an amazing farmer. His name was Charles Mukarimu, Charles Motweri, who owns Mukarimu farm. And he was able actually to share about the cost that he uses on the farm. And from those costs, we are able to see what is your cost, what are your break-even points. And actually this was bigger because actually it also depends on the variety of the coffee, because every varietal is different. So it's moving from there, and then looking at, because all this is farm economics. So we also look at yield per tree. And then from there, we add some other things like, now we come as professionals and start adding other things like depreciation, about loans. We add about, maintenance of everything. And then, we had all the things. So for us, it's that solution to be able to uplift communities, farming communities, from this cyclic level of poverty. And also the other thing was, and it's something that Charles told me that was so impactful, was 2 years, the prices are good. 7 to 8 years, prices are bad. So how can you be able to maintain that? So he's only profitable for 2, going at a loss for 8. And then when you look at it again on a national level, like if you look at a country like Kenya, every 5 years we have an election, and every 5 years, the funniest thing, and people don't know about it, is that every 5 years the government also clears out the debt for that has been accumulated by coffee farmers. So not only that, Kenya is also using its own taxpayers' money that it's supposed to use for other purposes to be able to eliminate debt that farmers have accumulated, and they cannot be able to get it back. So for us, it was a bigger solution. But first of all, is the farmer to understand, because the other thing is that what we talked about is that the soil is the natural resource. It's not the coffee. So whatever that soil can grow, right now it's growing coffee, but if coffee doesn't make sense to the farmer, then why are we growing coffee? So because you cannot be continuously in this cycle. So when we came with this soil to cup approach, was actually looking at what does a farmer know? What is it that the farmer doesn't know? What do we know? And what do we know about the market? And then humanize the whole concept instead of trying to put, because every time we say the producer and the market, we dehumanize the supply chain. We forget that it's two individuals who are dealing with each other. One is giving, one is producing the product, and the other one is actually purchasing the product. So it is trying just to bring equality to that. So my vision and for soil to cup approach is like, can we bring the farmer to the table as an equal partner as well, so that we all have this win-win situation. And then something else is it's a reality is that Kenyan coffee is dying, and it's not a story. It's dying. We are 20% capacity right now, and then if you look at we are working with a wet mill right now with the Madeira North Cooperative. They had 5 wet mills. All of them 5 are dead. And when I say dead, it's like non-operational. So for us, it's like to bring up these communities back. And with the soil to cup approach, we are starting to see the results actually coming back, where we have these Roiroiro. We are working with Roiroiro as a wet mill. And Roiroiro is actually, when we started working with them, was in the first harvest was actually in 2019, 2020. And 3,000 kilos of cherry. And this year we are looking around 60 to 70,000 kilos. So we are seeing that this is working, and our process is very simple. Pre-contract with the farmers pre-harvest. So we contract with the farmers pre-harvest. So the farmer knows exactly how much they're gonna pay. Then we're also contracting them with, when we enter into those contracts, we're also entering into those contracts with the Kenya shilling, which is what they use to buy their stuff. So we are seeing that. And we are seeing another gentleman, a youth in Kenya called Derek. And Derek is actually wanted to uproot his coffee trees, and we had to convince him, and then we had to actually be able to get into it. And one of the things we are doing with Derek is like, he has decided to keep his coffee trees, inherited from his grandparents, and now he's planning to keep them. And the reason he's planning to keep them is because he sees that with the system that we do have, he can be able to predict a future. And actually, he was planning to take the trees out and plant and put a gas station there. So we are seeing the system working.
Thank you, Francis. Then thank you again. I have to tell you that I heard a few things here that just really, hit home for me. You mentioned about the guy who would, take the coffee to the windmill, and the woman who taught you about coffee doesn't even know where her coffee goes, because the husband come in and then the coffee sold. So which means actually all the coffee is taken to a windmill, and he's probably taking, he's getting a receipt, and he's going to be the one who's going to be collecting the payment. So to that point, one thing I want to share is also some of the work that we've done in Burundi for that very specific issues and challenges. Also, like Kellem had mentioned about the women. How do you actually encourage the women to actually be able to continuously be empowered? I'm hearing different things here going on, and when you say the coffee is being taken, but she doesn't know where the coffee goes. So one of the things that we've been doing, JNP Coffee, is actually to make sure that those women are following the coffee to the windmill, and they actually get a job at that windmill. Not only that, when we come back and pay that second payment, as we call the second payment, which is a premium, we make sure the woman who actually was involved in producing that coffee shows up and get paid. But we are talking about coffee that's obviously not only like in places like Burundi, like places like Kenya, places like Colombia. is not sustainable unless we do something. And I'm hearing different things that each one of you have been doing in your own community to empower, the farmers, with the premium reward program, Kellem, that you mentioned that you've been doing in Colombia and Rwanda, the making sure that the farmers in Kenya are being paid a good price so they can actually be able to continuously grow that, that crop. Like you mentioned earlier, Francis, when you came in, you're trying to make sure this crop doesn't die. And because you saw another crop dying. And like you mentioned also, every single time that there is a new government that comes in place, they come and they just restart from scratch. And I can share the same stories that I've been seeing as well in my country of birth, Burundi, where every single year, the government actually set a minimum price where the coffee is going to be sold at. And sometimes that price is so low, it's even like below, what, they're able to recuperate the cost. So with that, I'm hearing different theme here, and which theme about empowering women, about trying to make that this crop remain sustainable. Can you just share with me a little bit about what are we doing for youth? For example, some of the biggest issue we also have experience all across the globe is we don't have a lot of young people who are coming back, who actually want to be able to keep up with that crop. Like coffee has been like in Africa for so many years. Why is it not working? So I'm going to have, each one of you just, feel free to share whatever you feel like you can share with this issue about, sustainability. How do we really make sure, what are things that we are doing to make sure that we encourage the youth to stay in, we empower even more women. So something that are very, very important to our audience. If you can share a little more, that would be very appreciated.
So I'm happy to jump in, Jeanine, if that's helpful. I think, what I've seen that's effective, and in talking with our teams, our sustainable harvest teams in Colombia and countries across the globe is, as we all know well, there's a strong connection between women and youth, right? And so what we've seen in programs, and I do want to make sure to be clear, the programs that we run are made possible by support from roasters as well, right? So that's that full value chain connection. And so when we talk about tackling challenges and tackling challenges at origin, I want to make sure that it's clear that the approach is not just the relationship ecosystem in where the country is grown, but it's the relationship ecosystem across the full exchange of coffee, all the way to the drinker, right? Because coffee drinkers have a choice these days, and they can choose to be educated about where their coffee comes from and what the companies they buy from do. So I want to make sure that point is not lost when we talk about the different programs. And I'd imagine it's the same for all of us, right? But in this connection between women and youth, we have seen that where women are able to demonstrate for their families the tangible benefits of attending trainings, of participating in programs, the shift in the family dynamic happens, right? And it happens in a way that is more on the family's terms, right? Because a lot of times, any change, I'd imagine in any culture, I know in my own family, right? One change to one of us affects the whole family. So when our programs have been most successful for the women who are directly participating, but the families and the children of those women have been when the women are able to participate in a way that they fully own the training and the lessons that are being learned, as well as can demonstrate a tangible improvement or a tangible result as that brings benefit back to the family, whether it's in terms of improved prices and improved quality for their coffee, in terms of ability to now cup coffee and help teach the family how to cup coffee. But in our experiences, the experiences of my colleagues in our various origin offices, there's a direct connection to what the women who participate in training programs are able to demonstrate themselves and bring home in their own family context. And then if I could, Francis, if you could indulge me to ask you for one thing in your answer. One of the things that I just so admire about your model is recognizing first and foremost in the title, soil to cup, right? And so the focus on the fundamentals in your program. And so I was wondering if, like you did with your cost of production example, Could you share some of the two-way learnings that you had related to soil? You know, what farmers taught you and your colleagues, and what you were able to identify was a piece that farmers may have been missing that ended up being critical for their continued success and improvement. Hope that's okay, Jeanine.
That is absolutely perfect. That's what this is all about. It's a discussion, it's a conversation. So anyone at any point can actually ask, we can ask each other questions at any point. This is the purpose of all this discussion. Francis, please go ahead.
So first of all, let me say about what Kellem has talked about, and then I'll talk about the youth. What we realized mostly when you go to the soil itself, the farmer really understands the farm. He does. And as I said, he's the professional on that end. And they teach us so much. Like, there's a new way of actually planting seedlings that can help, actually that seedling can get even grow faster and produce higher yields just by the way they do it. And it is a new system that was tested. It's a proven system that was tested already. And they dig a hole that is actually 3 meters by 3 meters. So 3 meters deep and then 3 meters wide to plant that small seedling. And then what they do is at the bottom, they put banana leaves. And then after that, they put manure. And then they put foliage, and then they put manure again. And then on the top again, they put the topsoil and then bring it in. What that does, it helps hold the water. The banana leaves at the bottom, because banana leaves don't let water go through, they hold it. And that's not something that we did. It's something that the farmers realized themselves. I have some, like my farmer, Charles Motweri, can be able to go around his farm and be able to know which actually tree, just by looking at the leaves, which tree gonna give him the best yield. And he changes them all the time. So for us, when we came up with this cost of production thing, Charles has like over 10 different farms, and he was like, you know what? I can have 3 farms and have the same yield and cut my cost down. So to me, that was a very enlightening moment. And not only that, there was a time his daughter came and wanted to buy a car. And he told him, hey, Dad, can you help me buy a car? And Charles was like, no, let's buy a piece of land, plant coffee, and then you'll buy as many cars as you want. Because he understood, now because he was able to understand what the cost of production and yield means for him as to be profitable in coffee, it just made sense to him to be able to be confident in that. And then just to walk, and this one will walk into this issue of youth. He's always, Charles is also always encouraging the youth. So based on these ideas, we talk with him all the time, and based on these ideas, he's talking to the youth. Some of the youth are working in, they are doing like jobs like, in Kenya, we call them bodas, which is motorcycles. Like it's an Uber motorcycle, if you think about it. He owns a motorcycle and they drive people around. And he's telling them, you can be able to succeed you can be able to succeed better as a coffee farmer. And how he's sharing this knowledge about the cost of production and yield analysis, and then going to them and then being able to tell them, you can be able to be successful as a farmer. And we see it. We see all these all the time, because the youth, the biggest problem that we have in Kenya is the old generation have a connection with coffee. They have a connection with coffee because to them, it was a liberation. To them, it was like they were not allowed to grow coffee. Now they are, when independence came to Kenya, they were allowed to grow coffee. So there's a sense of, I got liberated. This is a liberation crop for me. When you go to the younger generation, you know, we don't feel it. We never went through colonialism. So for us, it's like, hey, I found my father growing this crop. This crop doesn't make economic sense to me, so I don't want to do it. So, and that is why you find that the youth don't want to come in. And some of the youth who can remember, who are younger, let's say in the 80s, they were maybe going to school. They were able to see that their parents could take them to school. They're able to say, this crop took me to school. So it's possible that this crop can be able to actually be successful. So it is us convincing them and telling them that if you understand the economics of it, if we are on the same page with the economics of it, then you'll know when this crop is not making sense to you for you to grow it. Because a very good example, and I'll give this as very specific. The cost, the farmer gets paid around 38 Kenya shillings. And I'm gonna go here, 38 Kenya shillings. I'm gonna go, just look at the number, not the denomination of the legal tender. 38, and he pays, and then his cost of production is around 50. So the farmer is always losing 12 shillings. That is now over 5 years, that farmer is gonna keep losing that amount of money. So if he's producing, so that means he's always gonna be in debt. And that at that moment, you haven't even counted the loans that he has taken, and you haven't counted some of the stuff that he has used to spend on that. So, and then the other bigger picture that we also solved with the soil to cup is not only if the farmer knows what he's gonna get paid at the end of the season. So that's a guarantee. He knows how much he's gonna get paid at the end of the season. Because we, as I said, we contract pre-harvest. So when he harvests, he knows what he's gonna get paid. So the onus is on the farmer as well to work hard to be able to produce enough coffee cherries, because we negotiate at coffee cherry level, so that he can be able to maximize his earnings. Secondly, we also realize that farmers used to get paid, and this is a problem. I don't know if it's a problem in any other country, but in Kenya, the farmers used to get paid 8 months after they have harvested. 8 months. And they still have to continue paying. Actually, they have to take loans for the next crop. So by the time they are getting paid, they are paying the loans. So for us, we make sure that the farmers get paid within, after they finish up the harvesting, within a month, they are getting paid. And this is yielding results. Actually, one of our farmers my operations manager he's working on a project that we are doing in Roiro, and he met one of the farmers and he said, "Thank you so much for paying me on time, because I was able to take my kid to school. I was able to pay school fees. Even in Corona, he was able to pay the school fees." So to us, those are the things, and some of the farmers are saying, this is the much I've been paid per kilo in all the years I've grown coffee. And we're talking from the 60s up to now. And it's because now they're understanding this is the minimum, because we have a minimum that we pay. Otherwise, you're going to impoverish them. So there's the minimum that we pay that is about 25% above the cost of production. So that one, actually, you end up building communities. You start seeing the confidence from the farmers, and now the farmers want to come in and they want to be able to start bringing coffee. And that's why we are seeing the farmers from Roiro coming from 60 last year to around 265 this year. So there's an increase of 200 farmers who actually were not part of that, and they were not growing coffee, and they were neglecting the crops, and now they want to come back.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add to that. And then Jeanine, I don't know if this is where you're going, but I think it might be a great time to talk about your financial literacy program, if I could point in another direction too. But I think exactly what you're hitting on, we've seen as well, is that when you introduce that economic profitability, it brings room for seeing more possibility, which is completely logical and applies to any context, right? And so we've seen it in some of our programs and projects where farmers start to realize through coffee quality improvements, higher prices, grows more confidence, grows women taking on more leadership roles in cooperatives, grows their children seeing the potential for leadership and growth and development and innovation, and coming back to coffee and seeing it in a new light. But that step that you hit on, Francis, of need to be able to clearly and unquestionably see the economic opportunity before these other pieces can begin to be seen and imagined.
Yeah, so Kellem, now that you point me to financial literacy, I can actually then share on that point. But first of all, I want to kind of say one of the things I'm seeing here, I don't know if you're seeing here, just like the common theme about education. You got to educate. This is very key. And if that is like at the farm level, they're educating us as well, as Francis is sharing, but we also have to bring back that education. And, hopefully Francis can share a bit about the cost of production, how you're able to actually, share with most of the farmers who most of the time in places like developing countries like Kenya, like Burundi, don't have much education beyond high school. So how are you going to explain to a farmer the cost of production, and so they can make sure they are remaining profitable? So there's, as I say, a theme that I'm hearing here is, the education part, empowering women and also empowering youth and making sure that they stay in the farm, they come back and help the parents, and also the financial support, which is those three themes. I think that they're part of what I call the holistic sustainable solution to the problem that we are seeing in coffee right now. But Kellem, so to answer your question, one of the things that we've done, for us in Burundi is not only empowering, women and also men, or the farmers to produce, high quality coffee, but we also promise that if you actually produce a high quality coffee, guess what? I'm going to come back and pay you more, for the coffee. And which also we have been very well known for that premium, which is, I'm calling that a second payment. When we come back to the farmers and then pay them additional to already pay them for the coffee. So not only are we paying just like high price coffee for the coffee, we don't even look at the C market for us. So the C market, it has been very interesting, obviously this year, because it's way up, what it is, but we don't even look at the C market, because if you look at the C market in places like, Burundi, even like Kenya, when they have just so little to offer, if you have to be able to provide a good price, so you can actually be able to intensify them, to encourage them to actually continue still producing, that crop and that coffee. So as I say, I'm seeing a very common theme, which is, I think, is a solution, is also the answer to what we would call sustainable, to make our product, our coffee sustainable, is that it's education, empowerment to youth, to women, the financial support across the board. For us, I can actually even give you an example when some of the women that we've been empowering with this second payment, they actually went out and started their own wet meal, which now they're looking at this, say, we had no idea how hard it is. Now we have our own wet meal. We don't have to just like deliver the coffee, the wet meals, and somebody else is going to actually have to figure out what, how to sell it and how to process it. But now we are responsible. Now we have a better understanding, actually even more of a whole picture of what it takes to not only grow it, but actually process it, prior to getting exported. So Kellem, if you might just share with us a little bit about your holistic approach at sustainable harvest, how not only involving the the relationship with the at the farm level, but also with the roasters. How is that working? So it can actually not only just one piece that you're making sure you're taking care of the farmers, but you're also making sure the roasters are getting involved. If you might be able to kind of share a bit about that, and I'll come back to you, Francis, we can maybe share about how do you make it rudimental understandable for the farmers, for them to be able to understand the cost of production, and therefore for them to make sure they remain sustainable and also profitable. So Kellem, would you?
Sure, no problem. And I'll keep it brief so that, we can get to those questions like I know we wanted to be able to do. And it's really pretty simple. I mean, transparent buyer-seller relationships have been a priority and a key element of relationship coffee from day one. And, how does that idea or that concept manifest? And it's really simple things like, having regular update calls between the roaster and the growers and the leaders of the cooperative, where the leaders of the cooperative are able to share, here's what's going on, here's how COVID is playing out, or here's how the shipping crises are playing out for us, so that the roasters can hear firsthand and build that familiarity and relationship with their buyers. And we can help facilitate that by, helping to provide each group with some context, right? And because we sit in between the two, right? So part of my role is to help synthesize for the coffee producers or the coffee cooperatives. Okay, here's who your customers are, and here's a quick sustainability profile of what's important to them, right? Every company has their different set of priorities or change that they'd like to drive in the world, and part of our role is to help facilitate that, because as we all know very well, there's no shortage of jargon and complicated terms in sustainability. And so the more that we can deliver that aspect of education, in addition to, setting up the calls and the communication while we can't be together in person, that's how we facilitate the transparent buyer-seller relationships.
Thank you, Kellem. Francis, I'm going to have you touch a little bit on the cost of production, how you share that, how you break it down to the farmers as well, and then we're going to go in Q&A, so we get a chance for our audience to ask questions, and we can answer their questions as well. And please feel free to turn on your camera so we can see your faces if you feel comfortable. And Francis, if you may, just touch base a little bit on that, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so our cost of production, actually, it was very farmer driven. We let the farmer write everything that he's using on the farm level. So, and then it is, for us, we just did the math and added those things that we felt were more important. So it was from the time he prunes all the way to the time he harvests. What are those costs? The manure, the fertilizer, and everything. And fortunately, with somebody like Charles Mutweri, he had that written down. So it was an easy, I would say, we were fortunate that we had somebody who was writing those things down, and he had that data down. And then, we cost in inflation. Now for us, we come in and just cost in inflation and stuff like that. So it was just a very holistic aspect of it. The other thing I'd like to mention, and I think it's what Kellem said, is like, and I think you asked about, is the relationship with the roasters. For me personally, I couldn't have done this any better without the roasters, because whenever we never looked at quality when we go in. When we go in, we are not looking. Quality is not the first thing we are looking for. Quality is something we can be able to provide. We have the expertise to produce an amazing, a good quality coffee or an amazing quality coffee. Because if the farmer can produce it at a level, then we can be able to provide the expertise to produce it at the production level. So the processing methods, we are very equipped for that. My team in Kenya, Ernest and Paul, they have very good expertise on that end. So now when they do that, when we get the coffee, when we bring it out here, we usually give it out to roasters. And then we'd be able, some of the things we are looking for is like, can you be able to tell me what are you finding in this coffee? And some of the, now we have the professionals cappers here, and those are mostly our roasters. So they keep capping and then they tell me, okay, I find this defect on these, and then we go back again. So it's like more like a circular based system where we get information from the farmer, we get everything from the farmer, we bring it to the roaster, and then the roaster provides us with the feedback, and that feedback goes back to the farmer and in our production team, and then we keep making it better. So when the high quality, when the coffee quality comes up, it is because it was mostly a joint, it was a joint process between all of us that we did that. And I couldn't, I can thank so many of my roaster partners who have been able to help us through this. Because sometimes we bring them on a coffee, they're like, Francis, let's take it back. Let's work it again. And then we could be able to work it. And then they're like, oh yeah, that one is a good one. And then we start getting it to that level. So the roasters are, most of these roasters are just amazing in the work that they do and the process that they help us to be able to achieve that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Francis. And we can continuously talking, obviously, but I'm actually going to give a chance to the audience. I'm going to pause here. So if you may, please open your camera or just unmute yourself and ask any question. We are here for you. As I also mentioned, this is also recorded, so the audience can always come back and listen to this later, but we will love to hear from anyone who's listening right now. So I will just mute myself for a couple minutes.
Francis, while folks think of their questions, I was very engrossed in your analogy, and I was wondering when you finished the circle this way, how your arm was going to go. I thought that was a very full body explanation.
Yeah, I must say that we always try to. I have a way of saying like it's vertical. We are vertically integrated. So actually, from the farm level to negotiating with the farmers to be able to export the coffee, import the coffee, and actually be able to sell the coffee to the roasters. So we are integrated. And there's something one of my roasters said, and his name is Justin Dedini for Roseline Coffee, and he said, for me, the most important number is what you pay the farmer, because is he gonna get the confidence to grow coffee next year? To him, that was, and for us, fortunately, because of the way we negotiate with them, with the farmers, and or if it's the farmer directly or if it's the wet mill, when we negotiate with them, they know exactly what's gonna go there. And then we were able to take advantage of fintech as well, where we pay them with the M-Pesa system. If you haven't heard about the M-Pesa system, it's a mobile. Actually, M stands for mobile and Pesa is a Swahili word for money. So you can be able to receive money on your phone. So we are able to pay the farmers and it gets to their phone. So probably the farmer is working at the farm, and this is what we find to be a great incentive. The farmer is working at the farm. He's doing what he needs. He's used to do. And then he receives, his phone dings and he receives money. What would make that farmer not want to do a better job the following year? Because they were used to be lining up, and we couldn't have done this without like some of our partners. Like we had like a new KPC, which is the organization that the farmers have contracted with as their marketing agent. We work with them, so it's a holistic, more like you work with every sector and because you have to remain within the regulations. So you work with everybody. But the most important thing for us is like, no matter who we work with, that number to the farmer never changes. And we want to make sure that it never changes so that they have the confidence to be able to grow coffee. And then when we are able to share that number to the roasters, they also get the confidence when they buy the coffee. They know not only the traceability and the transparency, it's also how much was the farmer paid? And is he successful? And can he do the things that he needs to do? Like, small things like, take his wife out for lunch, or maybe a grandmother buy a present for his grandchild, or maybe a young guy take his girlfriend to a date. So much, these numbers, to me, that's when I look at these numbers, that's what those numbers mean to me. And I share this information with the roasters, and I tell them, this is what you have been able to do, because without the roasters, we can't do it. Without the farmers, we can't do it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Francis. This is very powerful, and I'm also going to kind of like mimic both what you and Kellem are saying. The relationship with the roaster, it's so vital. I mean, to the point for us, like once you start growing in that relationship, the same as like the trust that you build with the farmers level is as equally as important. In our case, it's just like having like some kind of guarantee at the beginning of the harvest that that roaster is going to commit to buy a certain amount of coffee from you. So going in that you have some guarantee moving forward, especially with the with this crop being very cyclical. It's also very interesting that you mentioned about the trust earlier, that the ROI and the trust and the confidence you mentioned earlier, Kellem. One of the things that we find ourselves into is once we start getting involved with the with our farmers partner relationship, it goes so deep to the level that at the beginning of the harvest, they actually come back to us and say, hey, I need money to just build new African raised beds, and I'm out of money, and I don't have money. Can you lend me some money? In the middle of like the harvest, they will come back and tell me things like, listen, the government is asking us now that to prepay for for all the coffee we are buying from our nearby farmers, and we don't have the funds. Can you help us? So you really end up by getting into a deeper relationship you didn't even anticipate. That sometimes the roasters don't even get to hear this. So we in our case, we end up by just not being just like the buying agent for them, but also getting involved in financing the whole production system. But you can only build the relationship once you actually have had, you have created the trust, that confidence. And we get to the point for us to actually have like more people want to be part of our program because they know that we are going to be there for them all the way through, from the beginning to the end. to the point that, like, you know, just as of like last year, we started just buying everything that a farmer relationship that we have, or co-op that we have relationship with, everything they produce, because we believe that there is a market for every single coffee they produce. But with the aim of always trying to say, hey guys, let's work on the quality, like Francis said, you know, just quality does not just happen by accident, but it's, you know, it's other things that you do that actually have the, you know, that quality. But so it's very interesting for me in terms of like what you end up by learning and doing, just to kind of maintain that sustainability. And in a place like our case, like in Burundi, I'm sure the same thing with Kenya, coffee just a crush crop. So there is other things that they are also growing. Coffee is a vehicle that will bring them extra cash that they can be able to take that, you know, kids to school, or pay for like a special, you know, healthcare, or special tuition, or a special need for the family. So, you know, for that to be able to be sustainable, you have to bring some other incentive. You have to do other things other than just like paying good coffee, good money for the coffee, so that tomorrow they can actually be able to plant it. And in our case, we do things like empowering the community. What else can we do for you? The financial literacy allow them to learn other things like saving, and be able to do other, you know, other businesses other than just like coffee. But there's so much that can be done, and you always almost have to kind of like continuously listening and continuously reapplying, and you know, to be able to bring that holistic solution to you know, to this situation and to our industry. But anyone else have anything to ask? I want really to hear from the audience. Otherwise, I'm going to start picking people out of the audience, because I can see some of the names. So I'll give you a couple seconds. All right. I am going to pick on Beth. Beth, I know you're a roaster in Texas, so pardon me if I'm picking on you. Is there any question you might have for us? Many questions you might have for Francis, for Kellem, for myself. I would love to hear what you might have in mind as you're listening to us.
I knew you were going to pick on me. Okay, so yeah, I do. I had a couple of questions. One of them is, I love this model because I don't know, I'm also a partner in farms in Costa Rica. So this is really interesting, this model. I was wondering, is there a goal that you set for, if I'm setting you know, this is what it costs us, and we've got that documentation. This is what we just basically defer, and people say this is what we need to be paid this year, and so that's what we all agree to. But should there be goals, like, okay, so if it's this year, are we going to go up this much percentage for next year? Do you have something that you're going towards? Does that make sense? Like you know, when you set a budget and then your goals for then, I'm going to increase by this much payment every year. Are there things like that you do?
Yes, I can answer that actually. That is, thank you, Beth. Yes, we do have that. And we start, as I said, we have that minimum number. And that minimum number is when we meet the farmer has neglected their coffee trees, the quality, we have to bring the quality to the level that we want. So there's always like, we always know, like, if you pay a farmer a certain price, they will be the best efficient. And for example, like if you say, I'm gonna pay a farmer $1 for the kilo of cherry, that would be like the most efficient pricing that you know that he can be able to not only have the money to do what he has to do, but also create savings and also have retirement. Because the reason why we also buy on a cherry price is because that is what the farmer harvests. He harvests a cherry. So when you pay on the bean price, there's so many factors that happen there. And so for us, we are left with doing the conversion, we are left with doing everything. So when the farmer brings us the cherry, we get it from there. If it produces an AA, good enough. If it produces an AB, that's our problem. And then if it, you know, whatever it produces after that. So the farmer knows that, okay, this is what I produced, this is what I made. And now we know that with this price, you're gonna be successful. You're gonna be successful in the long haul. And then we are looking also at inflation. Like in Kenya, inflation by 2026 is going to be like 5%, maintained at 5%. That's a prediction. So we look at all those factors, and that is why we come in as professionals. That's why for me, I feel like I came in there rather than a coffee guy, but somebody outside coffee trying to solve an education problem. Like, people don't understand these economic models that we have in the West. They're not known in mostly in countries like in Kenya. So how can we be able to bring people to be on the same level? So to us, that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Francis. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining us, and thanks, Beth, for being willing to open your camera to ask a question. Again, Kellem, thank you so much again to be part of this discussion. Always great to see you. It has been wonderful to have all of you here, and it's going to be recorded, as I mentioned, and it's going to be shared on SCA Instagram. So please feel free to tap into this, and if you have any question, please, you can join to any one of us. Maybe Francis, you might want to add on your contact if it's like the website of your company. Kellem, please feel free to do the same as well. And I want to thank all of you for your time, and wishing you a very wonderful rest of the afternoon or morning for some of you.
Thanks, Jeanine. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Claire and Sheila.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it, your time. Thank you.
Have a great one, everyone. Cheers.